Pratiksha, what I will do is I'll just recap like whatever we had done in our previous class.
Sure.
Yeah. We had started with groups in our last class, groups and sets basically. So the groups is a concept wherein which allows you to once you have some dimensions and measures and you have plotting a graph or any bar graph or any of these sort of graphs, you might want to group a few of those dimensions together and then mark them as a single kind of an entity so that you can have this basically allows you to group things into one. So that's where groups come into picture. And the other concept that we discussed was sets. So here what happens is you can actually create a set based on the values, so you saw that what we did was like we created a set which said where give me all the customers, where the sales is greater than $100,000 or something like that, and then we can create those as a set and then use that set in our visualization as a part of filter or something like that. So it gives us a way of filtering the information by creating a set, and you can have multiple sets created. So that is the concept of sets. And then also we spoke about calculated fields and how and what all different things that we can do here. So we just briefly saw a few of the logical condition. And in fact, we just looked at the if condition. Basically, we were looking at if then condition, and then using which how we were able to create new fields which are not actually present in the underlying database. So these are purely new fields that we created within Tableau and used that in our visualization, either as a part of the view or as a part of a filter that in our view. And also we spoke about the parameters. Like the parameters are basically static set of values, which you can use in our reports. With use when parameters, we can make use of parameters either as filters. So we just saw how what are the different ways we can use this parameter. We could use it like in this example here. We could use it by making it as a input, which user can as a way user can give us inputs and change certain things in the view, and the report changes accordingly. Or also we could use it as a filter, as a drop-down filter, and which I just explained like how it is different from a regular filter, and why and in which scenarios could we go for parameters as filters, and which scenarios it is better to stick with the filters. So that was what we actually spoke about in the last class. So and I just brought this up, brought this slide up where we have the list of all the different kinds of different major types of views that Tableau gives us. So I'll just run through these. So the first thing is so before I actually run through these things, so do you have any questions at all on the ones that we discussed on the last class?
No, I don't have any questions.
Okay, cool. So I'll just run through these things, and then we can go deep into each one of these, and I'll show how to build these things and what are the different variants that we have in each of these graph types. So the first one is actually the text table. So when we say text table, it's a basic crosstab or a tabular report that you would see anywhere, probably in like how you would see it in an Excel or something like that. So you would basically have the dimensions and the measures and rows and columns kind of a report. So this would also be helpful, but actually Tableau isn't really meant to be doing the textual kind of or the tabular reports. Tableau does that, but then there are like where Tableau actually adds value is in its visualization using different types of graphs that it provides. One of them is of course the bar graph, which is one of the most basic graphs that we would be using, and it is used a lot of times, because it is a very simple graph, and then it gives you exactly a clear picture of whatever you're trying to plot. If you're trying to plot the profit against each of these product categories, so we can just very easily see by the length of the graph, by the length of the bars, like which one is doing good and which one is lacking. So that's the bar graph, and there are various different variants of bar graphs that we can create in Tableau, which I will show you. And also the next is the line graph. So line is basically when we you want to have looking at the when we're looking at the trend, based on the dates, either order date or a ship date, or you might be having various different dates that you want to plot your graph against. So use these dates, and then we draw a line, and we capture the trends. So that's when actually the lines come into picture. And when we say the continuous lines, this is more like you having dates, and then in dates you could have something like a discrete date and a continuous date. So I will show these different things, different distinctions actually. I can show these to you, and then you will understand like what's exactly the difference between a continuous line and a discrete line graph. And then we have a scatter plot. So scatter plots are basically when you have two measures, like a profit and a sale, or a trade investment and a sale. So from this, what I mean is, so you have a measure called sales. So you have this how my sales is faring. So you have your sales information, but then you want to also see as against how much I'm selling, what is the profit I'm making. So you might actually be selling a lot, but then not making all that much of profit at all. So when we want to see these two things next to each other or plotted in a single graph, we actually go for something called scatter plots. So this gives a very interesting view of all the sales and profit, or any trade investments and profits, and this kind of things that you could do here. And then, of course, the last one over here is maps. So Tableau gives you a very, very good geospatial maps, mapping facility. I mean, facility wherein you can actually go ahead and plot your sales or any of these things. Any of the measures, given that you have, the state information or the city information. Actually, you can go ahead and plot these things on the graph, and then show it to your like higher management, or the business users, who would actually like it, like saying, okay, this part of the country, is where I'm doing good business, and this part of the country I'm not really doing all that great, so this is where I need to focus on, so that it gives a very nice view of our business on a geographical area wise. So these are the major different types of graph that Tableau gives us. Okay, and then so this is how a tabular graph would look like. So like this is nothing but a simple row and column. So you have rows and you have columns, and then you have the different measures plotted in textual manner. So you can see what we've done is we're trying to show the sales for each of this order priority, and under this order priority you have the regions. So a critical order in central region with different product containers, how has been my sales, over the last 4 years. So this is a simple graph textual view that Tableau gives us to show. I mean, I will show now like how we can actually go ahead and plot these things. So what we were trying to do, this is very simple, so even if you want to actually go ahead and just select this, as I was saying, there are multiple ways how you can go about creating a view. So the first one of the things would be just dragging and dropping here, or else if you're really sure about like what columns you want, so you can actually go ahead and say order priority, and then I want to see the region, I want to see the container type, or probably the customer segment, and I want this profit sales. So you can actually press control and click on all these fields that you want to plot, and then just go show me, and it will highlight you these things. So you can just now select this, and there you go. And when it just builds it up for us, and we get this nice little view here with the with all the rows and the columns that we wanted. So whatever we wanted here, so if you look, if you see here, what Tableau's done is it's automatically put the region on the top, and then it's on the columns. So basically that's why you're seeing this region column like this. And then you have this customer segment as the first row, and then you have the order priority. So what Tableau has done for us is it's actually grouped this view here, firstly on the customer segment, and then on each of these order priorities, and then on, and it's giving me the sale per region. Okay, so if you don't like this view, I mean, if you want to move it around, it's pretty simple. You just have to drag and drop. So now I have a view which is grouped by the order priority, and then the critical. I'm sorry, then the custom segment, and then you have the sales by region. You can also break this down. You can move this here, so you have it like this, and then you can put your order date on top. So you have it like this. Now you have it. Order priority, custom segment, region, and then by the year. So these are the different. This is you can actually play around and then see which view actually suits you and which view represents your data the best. And then you can go for something like. So this is a basic text table or any tabular report that you can build with Tableau.
To use all the data, first you have to put the data in the worksheet, right?
Right.
And make a workbook.
Yeah. Right. So see, now I'll just create a new sheet here. So the data is coming from the data source here. So if you remember, we had gone in the first class, we had gone here and then we said connect to data, and then you could go and select it from here in a sample workbook and things like that. So once you select that, this is what we're doing is with the sample workbook. But then in the real-time scenario, you might be having data coming in from an Excel spreadsheet or even from a CSV, which is a flat file, or it might be coming from a database, which is like an Oracle or a SQL Server or something like that. So once you have all those connections set up in your system, you can go ahead and connect to those and fetch your data. So once you have all the data here, once you have the data in the data source here, this is called the data window. So you would have those things segregated into dimensions and measures, and after that it's just simple drag and drop, based on what data you want and how you want to represent the data. So this gives you a lot of flexibility, and it's simply, what we did earlier was selecting each one of this, and then by clicking control and then going and selecting a view from here. You don't have to really go about doing that. You can actually just keep dragging these columns here. I mean the dimensions here, and see what looks good. I mean, I just drag these two into the rows, and probably I don't want to see it this way, so I just take it to the column, and this gives me a very compact view of what I was trying to do. So this you can actually play around, just drag this here, put it into the text field, and you have it. You have the profit. You have the profit by product container and the customer segment. So it's just based on like how exactly you want to show your data, put your data together in a text. You can do that, So all that is actually everything that what you do on a text table is based on what you put on the row and the column shelf here. So you can arrange it in any way that you want, and then you can actually show multiple measures if you want to show. You can see now I just had the profit here, so now I can even pull the sales and put it here, and then you have probably a view with both of these together here. This is one way, or you can also have these as a part of your, just change it to discrete, then you have it here. So I mean, this really doesn't look good, because I can put everything in one sheet, in one row, and then you would see like this, sales and profit next to each other instead of it being in a single column. So all these are different options that Tableau would give you. So it's very simple. So once you create a text table, you can just play around by moving these rows and columns up and down, and seeing which view fits the best for your needs and for your requirement. So what I'm going to do next is, just give me a minute. So what I'm going to do next is once we have this graph, this is exactly what this slide talks about. I mean, it's just telling like how we can actually go ahead and create a text table. Okay, and staying with the text table, if you see whatever we dragged onto the text table, we had all the sales or the profit or something like that. But then you actually would like to see the grand total of sales or the subtotal of sales per category, per product category or per product subcategory. So this is also possible within Tableau by just using there's a feature that Tableau gives us, using which we can do this yeah. So we have this thing now. So I'm gonna drag the sales here. So it's a simple table, just like how we had it earlier. So now, if you see, by default, you're not seeing any of the like subtotals. So if you want to see that, just very simple, go here and to the analysis menu, just come to the totals and say add row grand totals. So what it did is it just gave us a grand total over here for each of these rows. Okay, and then if you want to see even the column grand total, just say column grand total, and you would see a grand total given here at the end of this for each of these columns. And also, if you want to see the subtotals as well, just simple, go here and say add all subtotals. So now you see you have the subtotals provided to you on the text table based on each of this product container. So per product container and per subcategory, product subcategory, you have the subtotal per year here. So like it gives you a whole lot of options of showing the totals or not showing the totals, and depending upon how you want to represent your data. And one more thing that you could do here is actually even you can color code your measures, by one of these things. So I'll just control click the product container, and I'm going to drag that onto the color. So you see the text over here has got changed. The color of the text has got changed as per the product container. So this is just another visual effect that you can bring into a text table rather than keeping it as just a plain black and white text table. So that's another feature which Tableau provides us. And actually there are a whole lot of other things that you can do with the formatting. So if you want to show, for example, now I have given the sales here, but then I'm showing all of them in just the way it is there in the database. So I can actually not do that, and I can just show you the currency with one single decimal, and then I will show the units in thousands. So it looks smaller, and it's got this dollar sign next to it, symbol next to it, and then it's got a K which says it's in thousands. So this is another feature that it gives. You can go ahead and format all these things. So if you want to change the totals, if you want it to look any different, probably you can go and say make it bold and things like that. So if you see it's bolded, and then you can probably increase the size of this total. Not so much. It doesn't look good here. So probably something like this, which will make it stand out and say, okay, we are totals. So that's that kind of thing. So all these features are available in Tableau, using which you can make or a text table look pretty interesting, and show as well, and keep it pretty simple as well, because it's just a text where I'm showing you how each of my product subcategory has been doing business per job or product container, or it could be any dimension that I want to show here. So this is actually where you have. So this is the place, the analysis and totals. This is where you can actually have all your totals, subtotals, and all. If you do not like or want to have the subtotals, just go ahead and remove them from here. Say I don't want to show, so it's all gone. And similarly, if you don't want to have these, it's just click on it. Okay. So any questions on this?
I guess no right now, but when I actually do myself, I might have some.
Yeah, sure, not a problem. Yes. So I will just go ahead, and there are lots of things, there are lots of these small things, like the formatting over here by giving these lines and all those, and then giving a different color to the grand totals. So all these things we could do. I will actually have a separate, like probably a 15 or 20-minute session towards the end, wherein I'll show what all different types of formatting that you could do to make your visualization look interesting and nice.
Okay.
Yeah. And the next chart that we have, is a bar chart, which is actually it's a very basic chart, and it's highly used in most of the visualizations that people have, So this is, as you can see, this is the one reason why this is very popular is that it very clearly shows us that which region is doing good and which is not, and even if it's a small difference between east and south, you can still make out pretty clearly because of the difference in the length of these bars. So again, there are different variations that you can create in the using the bar graph. So I'll just show you. Track system column. Yeah. So this is a bar graph, and you can actually go ahead and create these, like use these sorts that we had done earlier. To display it either by like increasing sales or decreasing sales, and also but just by clicking here ABC, this it will give you the the sales numbers, on the labels on the bars. So you could use that, and then there is another thing that you could do is actually now the whatever I'm plotting, it's on the order priority. So now I want to see it by region. So I just go here, I just drag the region from here, and then I can just put it in front of it, just before it. So this will actually give me a view wherein I am seeing the region, and then the order priority, and then the sales. And if I don't like this, if you want to flip this around, this is a icon that you could actually use to just flip this around, so it would turn into a vertical bar chart, So I mean, based on how you want to show it, whatever is your requirement, and what fits best for your data, for the data that you have, and whatever you're trying to represent, you can actually use one of those. And also, if you see here, what we've done here is that we have a region, and then we have an order priority. So each of this is next to each other, and then we have the sales. So if you don't like this view and you want to make it a little different and add colors to it, what you can do is just drag the order priority here into the color. So what you have is ideally the same information in the bar chart, but in a slightly different way. So what we have here right now is the central, the region, east, south, and west, and the sales is broken down by the color, which is the order priority. So you can just by looking at the legend, you know that critical is this much, and then not specified. I mean, there's some things that are not specified. The order priorities are not specified, so those are the ones which are the next, and these things, So this is a way of representing the same information, but this allows us to do it in a smaller area. So most of the times you'll also have to realize that whatever sheets that you're creating here now, they will all together go into a dashboard sometimes, somewhere, and then you'll have to also like think about the space that's available for you on the dashboard, and then how to actually go ahead and show all the information that you want to show, but still not make the dashboard cramped for space and things like that. So that's when actually you can go and create something like this, which is giving you a lot of information similar to what we had earlier, similar to this, but then in a lesser space. It's taking lesser space, and it's adding colors to it, and then giving us the information. So these are like the different variations that you would have of a bar chart. You can also stack it up on top. So this, by the way, is called a stacked bar chart. which means it's stacking up all the other order priorities per region, and then showing as the sales for each of those order priorities. Okay, and then we have again, as we the next thing in the charts is basically the line charts. This is also again used a lot. The main reason being whenever we're building any dashboards or any reports, for the higher management, they're always interested in understanding like how the business has been over the years, like over the years or over a time period. Basically, it could be years, months, quarters, or even weeks. So always they would like to know like how's this product category been selling, over the last 12 months. Why has it been dipping? Why has the sales been dipping in this particular year, or when has it been dipping? So all those questions are answered by our trend lines. So whenever we want a trend line, we go for the line graph. So again, it's the same. Or you want to see what customer segment. So you want to see what customer segment it is, that is, and how you want to track the sales of that. So now you have it like this, and one thing you have to always remember is whenever we're talking about line graphs, it's always you always need to have at least one date field in your graph. So now we have this. So now you go here, and then you can just select this. So what it did was it gave us a line chart, and it's given us a line chart. So I'll just get rid of this one right now. So now what it's done is it's given us a line chart wherein it's telling that in 2009 your sales were here. Whatever, you can also have the labels here so that it's very clear as to what the sales were. So you have the sales here, and in 2010 it dipped, then it went up again. But then this is the overall sales of my company or my organizations. But I want to know how how the sales has been over these years, for each of the customer segment that I cater to. So very simply, you can just drag this into the colors, and then this gets split. The line chart gets split based on the customer segment, and it colors it by the customer segment. So if you want to see only the corporate, just click on this, and it will just highlight the corporate on the graph on the right side. So if you click on the legend, it will just show you that, and it just fades the other ones away, so that it just stands out, and you can look at whichever segment that you're interested in looking at. So this has been doing well. There was a dip here, but then it's fine. But then what's the one which is causing my sales go down? So that's something with the home office. So it's been good, but it's dropped and it's being steady and all those things. So whatever kind of analysis that anybody wants to do can do it using these line graphs. And now I will tell about the continuous and the discrete, which I was talking about. So before I go there, I think this, you have any questions on these line graphs or anything that you want to ask about?
Uh, isn't line graph also a type of bar graph, but it has to have a date?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I mean, you can actually convert this into bar graphs also. You can just see this. So it is like you will have these bar graphs, something like even with the dates, you can still have these as bar graphs. But then whenever you want to see a trend, this is actually ideally representing the same information which the line graph is showing you. Like what's been my what's been my sales for the consumers in 2009, and what's been it in 2012. But then it really doesn't show me visually that how high or how low it has been. So that's when you actually just convert it into a line graph, and you so easily see that in a corporate it's been high, and it's how it came down, and so that's the only difference. So it just gives you a better representation of data over the years. So that's why line graphs actually are very important, because they give you a trend. How
Okay.
how it's been faring. Yeah. Okay, so this is a line graph. This is a line graph, a color-coded line graph. That's what I've given here, in the slide, which is the one is a simple line graph, which is just giving me the profit by month, and then I just drag this customer segment in there into the colors, and then it split this line graph into 4 line graphs on a single on the same axis, and then it's showing me the different the sales for the different customer segment. Okay, so there's something that okay, before we go into this, and I'll just because we're staying on this, and I'll just show you this difference between the continuous and the discrete lines that we date times that I was talking about. So if you see here, when you do this, generally for any of these pills, so these are called pills, right? So these pills will have something like this, an inverted triangle. You can just click on that, and or right click on anywhere on the pill. It just brings us, gives us these different options that you can actually you can use in your views. So now if you see here, there is 2 different types of dates that it shows. One is year and one is year here, and you see this, it says continuous or it says discrete. So what is the difference between these two? So if I can just explain that to you by taking an example. So I'll take a discrete month. So either I can go here and say discrete, and then I can go choose a month, or I can just directly go here and choose the month from here, which says I am using the discrete month. The color of this pill changes to blue. That what it signifies is that it is now a discrete date field. So what do I mean by discrete? So what I exactly mean is, so you have selected this month here, which says May. That's an example anyway. So it says month, and if you see here on the axis, you only see the month, so you don't see the year. So what it has done is, it's picked up all the sales for the month of January in all the 4 years, 2009 through 2012, and then sum those together, and it is plotted here. Okay, so this sales for January for small business here is actually telling me that in January, in each of those years, in the month of January, whatever has been the sales, that's added up and plotted here. Okay, and I'll just show you the difference if I choose the continuous month. I say show me the continuous month. Now you see that it is showing me by month and by year. So it's showing me the sales for small business. Let us select small business. So it's showing me the sales for small business every month of every year. Okay. So that is basically the difference between a continuous line and the discrete line. So when I want to see the sales every month from 2008 November till 2012 November, then I would have to choose the continuous month. Or if I want to see how each month has been performing, I mean my business has been performing on each month every year, which means January 2012. So January, irrespective of which year, how was January been for my business? So if I want to answer, I have that question and I want that to be answered, like like probably there might be seasonalities, so probably I'm selling some cakes or some pastries and things like that, which probably have higher sales during Christmas or during any of those vacations, So those kind of things, which is I want to see, I will go and select this, so that I know that you see here, my corporate customer segment sales is always been high in September. I mean, it's been the highest in September, which means that the September month has been the highest sales throughout all these 4 years, So all the 4 years put together, September has been the month which always sells high. Or if I want to see the trend every month, then I use this. So, I mean, was it clear or did I confuse you or something?
It was clear. So
Yeah.
if I want to see the data for every month for many years or even few years, I just use a continuous. But if I have to use like how we did sales this month opposed to the sales last month, I mean last year's same month, then I use a discrete.
Discrete actually just adds up all the months for all the, I mean, irrespective of what years it is, it just takes that month's sales. So it takes when you say discrete, it takes January sales for the month for the year 2010, 11, 12, and 13 or whatever, and then adds that up and then gives you a January sales data. When I say continuous, it just gives me continuous, right from whatever information you have from whichever month you have till today, it will just plot it on the graph. So that's about the lines. So line chart wherein we also saw about the continuous lines and the discrete lines, and then color-coded line charts, wherein we can split the simple single line chart into different based on any dimension for that matter. Here it was customer segment. It could be for any dimension. It could be for whatever, order priority, whatever. Okay. So, and then we saw the discrete and the continuous lines. And also sticking with the line charts, we have something called individual axis charts and the blended axis charts. So these are basically these are variations of the line chart. Where I want. Okay, so I have this. So what I'm having here is a plot of my sales over the last 4 years. So I have the sales, but I also want to see the profit next to it. So what's in a line? So what do I do? Now I can actually just take this and put this guy here. So this gives me two measures, which is the sum and the profit. Sales and the profit next to each other on the line graph, and it's showing me for the different years. But this doesn't actually this is not actually all that good, because it's next to each other here, but then it's one under the other. So that is what this is doing. So it's what it says is each measure over here is having its own individual axis. Okay. So now if I want to see it like this, as a in the same axis, even though they're two different lines, but they're in the same axis. So what would I have to do is just drag that here instead of having, okay, let me go. So now I just have the order date, and I have the sales. I drag the profit, and instead of putting it here, I would put it here. And what that gives me is a blended axis line graph. So it just blends the axis for both these measures and gives me and plots it. So basically what it's doing is, and one more thing that you have, the point to be noted over here is that it would work only if the unit of both these measures is same. So here I'm trying to plot profit and sales, which are both dollar values, or currency values. So that's why it makes sense for me to put them together in a blended axis and then view them on a line graph. Okay. So these are again two different. These are variations of the line graph that you can have. And then we'll go into something called, again, this is also another extension of the line graphs that we have. They are the dual axis and the combination charts. So when I say dual axis, so dual axis is, so what we saw were individual axis and then a blended axis, where we have one single axis here and then both the measures plotted on that. But when we say dual axis, it's something like, if you see here, you've got one axis over here and there is another axis over here. So we're plotting these two measures on a single graph, but with different axes. So let me clear this. Yeah, I'll go with the same example. I have the order date, I have the sum of sales, and then I just drag this profit, and instead of putting it here or here, I'll put it here. So what it has done is, it has now put sum and profit, sales and profits next to each other, not only on the shelf here, but also on the graph. But one thing you might notice here, that um, this this is like a 400 4000K, and this is like a 400K. So there's actually a difference in the way it is being plotted. So this axis and this axis, the units, the tick marks are not right. So if you want, one thing you might want to do is go and synchronize the axis. So when you say synchronize the axis, it will show this. This is now very similar to a blended axis that we saw earlier, but then you have two different axes, one over here and one over here on the right side. I mean, these are all again different variations of the line graphs that we have. So it is all based on the requirement that we have at that point of time, or what suits best to the data that we have. Based on those information is what is when you take a decision to show either a blended axis or an individual axis and things like that. Or sometimes business wants to see it in a blended axis. So then they specify that, and then we go ahead and create this kind of graphs. Okay, and once we have created this blended axis, you can actually go, and now if you see, both are having lines. As the both are having line graphs. Even the sales and the profit, both are having line graphs. So what about how about changing one into a bar, or something like that? So that is also possible. So if when we made it a dual axis or dual axis, so you see here that in this marks we have multiple values coming up. So I'll just show you this. If I remove this, if I don't have if I just have the sales, here in the marks card, you just have one marks card, so because we just have one measure. So if I create a dual axis here, or a blended axis, you automatically see that there are multiple marks. So one for sales and one for profit. So now if I want to change one of them into a bar, I can go ahead and do that here. So I've done this. So what I've done is I've changed the sales into a bar chart, and I've left the profit as a line chart. But if I do a synchronized axis, this comes below here. So this is a trending profit over these times where my sales are in, and my sales I'm showing it in bar chart. So it's all like however whatever suits best for our data that we have. We can make adjustments and show these different types of graphs. So I can actually change this into a circle, which will show like this. So like probably not look good here, but then in some other situation, it would look good. For a circle, capital. So these are basically called the combination charts. So combination chart is when you have multiple measures here, different measures, and for each measure, I can go ahead and select a different type of graph, so that in a single view here, we have a combination of different charts types. So this would help in some situations to actually show two different measures in different chart types, and then so that they stand out, and you always know that just by looking at this, that these bars are my sales and this trend is my profit, something like that. So is that okay? Any questions on these things?
No, I think I understand.
Okay. And next, the next chart type is actually the scatter plot. So this is what I was talking about earlier. Wherein if you want to see the profit and the sales, and see how what this actually does is, it will tell me how much my sales has been and how much my profit has been for that amount of sales. And then there would be one point where these two join together, and that would be plotted on the graph. So for example, here, this this audit here, when we have the profit on the x-axis, and then we have the sales on the y-axis. So this dot over here, this circle over here, what it says is, so I have sold like these many. I mean, this has been my sales value for this amount of sales. This 30K has been my profit. So that is what this scatter plot actually tells us. So it's a way of it's a nice way of representing when you have two different numeric values to be compared, or it's not for comparison, but then it's like I have spent this much, but how much have I earned, or I have sold this many, and how much profit have I made? That kind of a question when you have it's scatter plots that actually give you a very nice picture. And then also, if you see here, we have next to each other, we have two different types of scatter plots. One is simple scatter plot where we just based on each order. So we just thrown all the orders into this graph and then plotted the scatter plot for profit and sales. But then it doesn't give me too much of information because all the circles here look the same. So when you color code it, by the customer segment, then it gives you a better picture which says, okay, consumers, it's been here. So the profit are fairly low in term for consumers, and it's been good for the corporate, and those kind of information is very easily identified. So I'll just go ahead and show how to do this. So you have sales. Go here and say give me this scatter plot, and then it'll give you this. Okay. So what it did is if you see here now, it's simply plotting everything. It's what it does is, well, one thing about Tableau is that whenever you drag any measure onto the view, Tableau aggregates it. It just adds up everything. So what you're seeing here is a total added sales and total added profit. So it is plotting sales versus profit. I'll just keep this around. So it's plotting sales versus profit and then saying, okay, this is where it is. Okay. So now if I want, but this doesn't give me any good information because it's just an overall sales and profit. So this is when I can actually drag this sales order ID into detail. Okay. So this is an example of what this part of the marks card is about. So when you say detail, or it's also called level of detail. So when we say a detail or a level of detail, what it means is whichever graph that you're plotting here on the right side, so what is the level of detail of the data? So what is the granularity of the data that you're plotting? So if I take this out from here, so now the level of detail, you don't have anything here. So the level of detail is an aggregated at the organization level. So it is just having the sales and profit for the entire organization, irrespective of any other, irrespective of all these other dimensions. So if you want to change the graph to come down to a level of detail, which might actually make sense for us to plot. So it could be any of these. Right? If you want to see order priority or any of the different things, product name and all those things, you can actually drag those. But now I will go ahead and drag this order ID into this detail, and now you see scatter plot has been plotted for each order ID. So if you see here, and one more thing you might have noticed that whenever I take this like mouse on over to something, any of the graphs, there you get this this information. So this is called a tooltip. This is called a tooltip or a mouse and hover information. So whenever I do a mouse hover, so you get this information. So that is called the tooltip, which is the other square over here. Which is, so if you want to you can go ahead and format the tooltip the way you want, to make it beautiful. You can beautify these things and just add some formatting and color and all those things. So I'll just show that how to do those things later. So so this is what it is. So if you go to order, if you go to the tooltip, you can see the information. So this says order ID 3073 and the profit and the sales. So if you see here profit, this is 0, and then it is plotted it on the negative. So it's like there's a loss. Even if I'm selling 48,000, if I'm making even if I'm making sales of around $50,000, but I'm actually making a loss for this order ID. But then what is this order ID? I don't really know. So you might want to break it again down by a product subcategory. So just drag the product subcategory onto the colors. So now you get a color for each subcategory. Probably this doesn't work well when you have a lot of members in a dimension. So you can actually go and remove this and then probably have plotted by a product category instead. So now this is nice. So now this I know the order ID. I know the order ID and I know what's the profit and what's the sales. This is not doing good. But then what category does it belong to? So it belongs to technology. So now I know that my category technology is not really doing all that great. If you click on this, you see the most of the profit is here. Sales and profit. So it's not that great. And then you have a lot of these guys who are here, which means I'm making a lot of loss. So all these order IDs, are loss making order IDs. And then I only have one guy here, which is giving me a lot of profit, but then most others are giving me loss. So that's the kind of analysis that you could do with a scatter plot. So if you want to see office supplies, this is okay. It's all concentrated here, but there are not too many orders that are making a lot of loss. So that kind of analysis. So furniture is like in between. It's just scattered all over. So it's making loss and it's making profit as well, but a little more profit than loss, I guess. So that's when this scatter plot comes into picture, and it becomes handy. So you can actually change this. So if you don't want to see by product category, you can remove the product category and then just put the regions. When I want to see what region am I doing well and not doing well. So central is predominantly just a little bit of loss and a little bit of profit kind of a thing. So east is more of profit, then south is more of profit again. So west I have lots of loss making outer IDs here. So that kind of analysis is what we could do with the scatter plots. So and and the next type of chart that we have is a pie chart. So pie again is a very interesting chart. And it is used it's used a lot, but then there are always some concerns about using the pie graph and a pie chart because in you have to be very careful when using the pie chart. Because what it does is, in this example that we have, you have the portions. So pies are generally, what it represents is like each pie here, like each slice of a pie is representing the proportion of whatever you are trying to plot. So here, what I'm trying to plot is a product sales by product category. So the sales by product category or the profit per product category, and the product category are only three. I only have three product categories. So because of that, it's a nice it is a nice representation, where I'm able to nicely slice this pie into three pieces, and then give the sales or the profit information. But then when we have a lot of values in the category or any one of these things, in the dimension, so that is when actually pie becomes a little difficult kind of a chart, because you would have very thin slices all over here, and you would not be able to really make out what's the difference between how much is one larger than the other or smaller than the other, that kind of information. So, but in general, pies are used to show the proportion, and it's generally like a percentage and things like that. So, I'll just quickly show you a pie, how we can do. So, I'll just go by the same example that I had given there, probably, like a product category, and then I have the sales information. So I just drag it here. It shows me a bar by default. So I just go here and I say, okay, give me a pie. So it just gives me this, So, but if you see here, it's what it's done is, it's automatically dragged. It's automatically created. I'll just do that again. So you saw there's nothing over here there is no information that is gone into this marks card yet. Okay, so we have the sales on the column and then the product category on the row. The moment I go and say pie, you see here there's a lot of change that happens here. So what happens? These two have vanished, but then you have the product category that's gone into the color. Okay, so each color represents a different product category, and then the sales, which was on the row or one of the places here. So that's gone into the angle. Okay, so this is that the angle is this. That's the other square that you would see on the mark. So the angle comes into picture whenever you're doing a pie. So what it does is it breaks the pie into slices, different slices, and the size of the slice is or the angle is defined by the sum now here. It is sum of sales has also gone into the size here, but then it really doesn't actually not making too much of a difference over here now. Okay, so what
But
I was
the data,
yeah,
so for,
sure.
okay, when we are given data, are we also given what kind of chart or bar graph or what to draw, or do we have to decide?
Yeah. I mean that what happens is Pratisha, like when we get this data, generally what the business people do is, they would have a fair idea of what they're looking at, So probably it's more like how I was explaining the other, probably a few minutes ago, that the business users, they would have questions, like which category is doing well, which category is my most profit making category, or which region am I selling the most, that kind of questions they would have, so what either or some in some cases the business users are pretty clear that I want a scatter plot which shows me my sales and profit per category, so when they say that, when spell it out very clearly, at that point of time, we know exactly what we're going to do. We just go ahead and create that. But sometimes they would not know that. So all the requirements would be like questions. So which is my best region, or which is my best category. So at that point of time, what you could do was, we could put our analysis, and we could come up with different types of charts, that represent this information or answer that question in the best way. And we can go back to the business and say, okay, so you wanted to see this, you had a question about which is my best category, which region am I selling the most. So here it is, I have this scatter plot which tells you that you are selling the best in the eastern region, and western region you're not selling well, so you probably have to look at the concentrate on your western region sales, so that kind of thing. So sometimes it's all depends on how well the business user is aware of his questions and what exactly is he expecting as an answer. So in some situations, some scenarios, we go back and tell them, okay, this is the best representation I think of the data that we can give you, so that you can understand that, or you can do some analysis based on these views. So it's all like on a case-to-case basis. Sometimes it's all very clear that they say, okay, give me a bar graph, give me a pie chart, and give me a scatter plot, and some cases it is not, so that time we have to actually try and understand, like this. I understand the question and then understand the requirements and then try to come up with the best possible view, whether it's a bar or a pie or a scatter plot.
Okay, makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. So now, okay, on this pie chart, so what I was saying was that, so you saw that when I changed this to a pie chart, you saw some changes in the marks card over here, so the product category came into the colors, and then the sum of sales, it went into the angle. So this is what decides as to how's my, it splits these slices of a pie by sales. That's what this means. When you put something into the angle, it tells you like how do you want me to split it. So it is split it by sales, I would say. So if I remove this, you would see each of the slices in this pie is of the same size. So the moment I drag the sales here into the angle, it just moves a little bit. Okay, and here if you see, this is again an example of why pi is not that great chart when it comes to representing some of the information. So here you see, for office supplies as well as for furniture, these two things, they almost sometimes they look same, or even this and this might look almost same. You wouldn't really, if you have more number of categories here, you wouldn't be really able to make out which one is bigger than the other, or which one is bigger. So if you see here, actually there's a difference if you have the labels going. But if I change it to a bar, you would easily see which one is large, which one is longer than the other, and things like that. So that's there's always an argument as to like whether to use pi or whether to use bar. Okay. So this is a pie chart. So you can actually show it this way, and then you can also have a percentage and all those things. So which is like which comes into another topic called table calculations. So I will show you how to create the percentage. Instead of showing the sales here, you would actually show the percentage of total sales. So we can do all those things. So, okay, this is just an example as to what I was telling earlier as to like whether to you go for a pie chart or a bar chart. So pies are very interesting, like, but we have to be very careful on when we use that. Like for example, here in this example, we are trying to show the profit. So profit could also be negative. So a pie you will not actually show negative information in a nice way. So you see here, this it says minus 99,000, but then whereas it plotted it, it's all very unclear. But then whereas when you put it on the bar graph, it's very clear as to which of these product subcategories are making loss and which of these is making a profit. It's quite clear based on the bar graph. When you see it, anything that's going left of this zero, that means we're making loss, and then this is profit. Whereas it's not very clear on the pie chart here. So that's an example wherein you should actually avoid pies and go for bars or something else. So okay, and this the next chart type is of maps. Okay, and these are like very interesting feature of this is a very interesting feature of Tableau, which Tableau provides. They have their own maps. Tableau's got their own maps which they use to give us this information. So I will just show a couple of examples here. So if you see in our data, we have the state information. So state, and if you see here, next to it, there's an icon which looks like a globe or something. So what that means is it is if you see the geographic role, so here what it tells what it tells is that it's a geographic data type. So it automatically finds out. Another thing about Tableau is that the moment you have any state information, Tableau itself has a lot of information. It stores a lot of information, which it goes back and checks, and then identifies it as a geographical data type, and then it marks it as a geographic data type. So that whenever you want to draw any or plot any graph on a map, so just go double click this. What Tableau does is just goes identifies what state it is, and then it will draw this map for you. Okay, so I just double clicked on the state. It uses Okay, and if you go here down on the measures, you see there's latitude and longitude. Now this is something like it gets automatically generated based on the information that we have in this state column or any of the zip code columns. So it goes, it identifies what the zip code is, it identifies what the state is, and then it would have already generated some latitude and longitude information, geographic information about those things. So whenever you drag this onto the view here, so automatically it gets these two things, it puts them here, and then it plots it properly, based on the state information that we have here, the state names that we have here. So it, it, it's it's pretty easy when we have exact names and all those things, but if it's not all, it's a misspelled, and if it's not correct and all those things, then of course it will have some trouble finding it out, and then we will have to go about correcting the data before we actually try to plot it on the graph. Okay, so now by double clicking, we've got this map view here, and then now I can do a whole lot of things on this. So I might want to just see how each of the state is like how is the sales in each of the state. So I'll go and I just put this size. I just put the sales on the size. So you can notice here that the some of the circles are bigger than the others. So what that means is my sales in New Mexico here it's less, and lesser compared to my sales in California. And then probably California is the state where I've got my largest sale. I mean, biggest, best sales happening. So that's another interesting thing that you can make out just by looking at this uh, map. So I can actually just go ahead and increase the size here so that it's a little bigger, and then you see that properly. And also, what you can do is now I have given the size by sales, and I can color it by profit. I just drag this color over here onto the profit. So what it does is, and again, it's a gradient, it's like a sliding kind of a color palette, wherein it tells me that whatever is a light faded kind of thing, or a red over here, it's a loss or a lesser profit, and then whichever is the darkest green is my most profitable state. So that's very simple. So if I just look at this, either this or this or this, these are like giving me good sales and good profits. But there are some of them which are like relatively bigger. This probably is as big as this, but then since the color is a faded green, which means the profit is not all that great, even though my sales are great. In Virginia, the sales are like pretty similar to what's there in Maryland, but then the profit is much lesser in Maryland than in Virginia. So these are the kind of insights that we get based on maps. So now what you're seeing here is an automatic map. It's a regular map wherein I can have these bubbles, and the size of the bubble and the color of the bubble and things like that. But this Tableau gives us another option wherein I can go and select this here, or from the show me, I can go and say, show me field maps. Okay. Let's change it here. Okay, so what you see here now is it is actually marking. I mean, it is entirely, it's a field map. So when I say when I say something like a field map, what it means is that it takes this map and then plots each of these states and then colors them according to this profit that we have right now. Yeah. And right now, if you see this, you have also the label, which is the sales. Okay, and the size of this font is now based on the sales, which is you can either choose to have it or not have it. So if you remove it, it will just go away, and then you can just have it as the label, sales as a label, and you would see that all of these fonts of same size. So you can just bring down the size to 6 or something. Yep. So So this is another view that you can have of your state, which is very clearly here. Montana is a state which is actually making a lot of loss, for me. And these places, this is the one which is giving me the most profit. So that is another view that we could have from the map. Again, staying with the maps, Tableau provides us a lot of different mapping options. So you can have different styles of maps. What we have right now is a gray map. You can actually go for a normal, which means it looks like a real like a map. With all the color for the water and all those things. Or you can actually go for a dark map. So this is all like um, different kinds of map options that Tableau provides. So you can probably notice that whenever you're going for these different types of options, that makes it a little, that makes the view a little heavy, because it has to include a lot of different formatting onto it. So it might be slow based on your like how you're connecting to the internet and all those things. So it's generally better to keep it as a normal or as a dark, based on, or a gray, and based on your requirement and your hardware and then your network speed and all those things, you can actually go for a lot of different options. So you can actually go and say, give me the borders, show me the borders more. So the borders would be more highlighted and all those things. So this is the options. This is a different mapping options that Tableau gives us. Yep. Okay. So this slide just talks about that. The maps. These are also called as chloroplasts. Which means you have a thematic map. Which gives a theme, which paints a theme. Saying that okay, this part of your country is, you're not doing well. This part you're doing the best, or something like that. Which gives you a theme. So they are also called thematic maps or data maps or chloroplasts. Okay. Okay. So another point about the maps is actually the pies. They pretty they make a good example here. Where we could use them. We could use them on a map. To so now what we've done. Okay, I'll just change this one back to automatic. Okay, and I'm gonna remove this. Sorry. Yep. So I have this. I'll put this back to size. Okay. So we have this map here, where we are plotting. We're plotting the sales for each of the states. Now, if this is simply this. This is the aggregated sales. Now, I might want to see. I have, again, as always we were doing. We have the customer segment or the product category. So I could choose one of these and then just put them into the color, and then choose the pie here. So now this gives me an idea or a picture of, which is, I have the sales. So the size of this total pie gives me uh, the sales information. So that if the pie is larger, that means the whole of the pie is large. So that means my sales is big. And then again, each slice of this pie tells me what the sales has been for each of my customer segments in that state, basically. So if you see in most of the states here, all the southern part, now you have corporate selling more. But if you go here, it's the consumer which is selling more, and those kind of information if the business wants to see. So this gives a very good picture of which is like broken down to a great extent. It's something like, I want to see the sales in my country based on which state I'm looking at, and then what customer segment um, am I like talking to, so or looking at, that kind of a view, so it's like this probably is a view which the sales and marketing team would be interested in or looking at, so it's saying that okay, this is good, but this is not good here, So here I'm not seeing any home office sales happening. So this probably is where I have to concentrate and look at this place, This is probably Idaho here. So so that kind of an insight can be given using pies on the map, So this is one interesting place where you can use the pies. So even this, we should be like, you have to be sure that we're not using any dimension that's got too many members in this, So it's like now you have just 4 or 5 members here in this customer segment, and it looks good, So, and it paints a nice picture of how the sales is happening per customer segment in a state. So, okay. So that's about this pies and maps. So, and then we have 2 other types of charts that I would probably discuss, which is one is the heat map, So when we say heat map, it's like a map wherein you have this. It's more of a text table, but then you have this background color ranging from one shade to, I mean, probably one color to a totally different color or diverging color, and then one from one end of the color to the other end, it gives you a different information. It's something like how if my profit is less, it will be red, and if my profit is good, it will be green. That kind of an information on a text table. So what you're saying here is a simple text table, but with a heat map on top of it, which means that okay, it just gives you a clear information of okay, this is where I am having problems, because it's got a dark red color to the background, which means it's got the least profit. So here it might be something like you have okay, I'll just start. I'll go and drag the region here, the order date here. Okay, I'll drag the sales. So okay, so I probably do not have too much of space in my dashboard, so I'm going to make this a really small graph or really small text table. So now in this case, now I'm not really able to see the sales information, but then I want to make that a heat map so that, and I remove this size. Sorry. Okay, so this gives me a heat map. This kind of a heat map, which is where I don't really want to see the exact numbers. I just want to see how my sales has been like trending, or how has my sales been over the last 4 years in each of the regions. But I'm not really concerned about the exact numbers. So in those kind of situations, so this heat map actually works just fine, because this tells me that okay, my central has been good over the last 3 years, but just the previous year, the 12, it is the lighter shade of green, which means it's not doing all that good. And then you have the south, where here, I mean, this is a cause of concern. In 2010, southern part, I had not sold much, so why is that? Then I'd probably go and look for answers there. So that kind of this kind of situation or a scenario, this heat map actually works well, and you have options to use different kind of colors, different kinds of color schemes basically. So Tableau gives you a lot of palettes. So you can actually, it's a range of palettes, and you can also go ahead and define your own palette, so define your own custom diverging colors. So now I just choose this temperature diverging, and you can reverse the color scheme. So if you want it to come from a red to blue or green over here, so that you can do that. So this is another representation of it. And again, there are lots of things that you can do. You can give a border to it, so that it just shows you, like this, just splits it nicely into different years. So this is a nice representation when you don't really are not interested in. You're not really interested in exact numbers, but you just want to see at a very high level what's the sales been. So on a heat map. So this is a heat map which will give you that information. Is this okay, Pratish? You have any questions till here on these maps or the heat map, something like
Not right now.
that? Okay, cool. Yeah. Okay, and the next chart type, it's called a tree map. And this is a new map visualize new kind of visualization that's come in the Tableau 8. That's the latest version that we have. This was not available in the previous version. So this is again a similar kind of a map, a chart wherein you can actually, but here the size of each of these rectangle actually gives, I mean, it's like a each proportion, it shows relative proportion. So it's like a heat map, but then you have a varying size as well, so that a bigger rectangle says that it's got the larger scales, and then a smaller one says it's got the lesser scales, and that kind of a thing. So it's again pretty simple. So I have the subcategories. I have the sales here or the profit. So I'll just put the sales here. Put the sales here, and I say give me a tree map. That's it. So it just gives me a tree map now wherein I have these office machines, tables, and these are the largest selling product subcategories for me. And then these are the other subcategories, which are not doing all that great. So here, these small ones over here, the rubber bands and things like that. These are the ones that probably we need to concentrate on so that we sell and identify and sell these more. So it's a very simple map, which it this is again the heat map or a tree map. These maps are like it is used mainly when you want to look at these informations at a very high level. When you don't really are looking at when you're not really looking at the exact numbers, and then you're looking at how much bigger is the office space sales than the table and that kind of a thing. But you just want to have an overall view as to which one is selling the most and which one is not. So that kind of a condition. So that's about these chart types. So I can what I will do is Pratiksha, is just one more slide. Probably I will take this one, which is like a cool feature that Tableau has, which is the page shelf. Here. So
Okay.
yeah, what you're saying here. So this is a page shelf. So we've used all these shelves till now, it's like the filter shelf or the column row, but we've not used the page shelf. So what exactly does it do? I'll just show that to you. So now you see that. I mean, I've just plotted a trend line here. I can just drag this month guy, and then put it onto the page shelf. Okay. So what it has done is it's just showing me a dot here for the month January 2009, and it allows me play this. If I click on this button here, it just plays it. It just animates. There's an animation that goes on, and it plots each of this month. Okay, and this tells how the sales has been going on. Like it's coming down or going up, things like that. Okay, and there's cool features like you can actually go and show the history. So you can show history, and then you can do something like that, and then just change the color and things like that. Okay. So now drag it all the way back, and then Okay, there's just one of these chart, one of these mark types gives us the history. I'm just trying to find out which one that is. Wait a minute.
Okay.
So if you see, so I'm going to play this. So when I play this, you can see that it is actually doing an animation and it's showing me the sales, and it's as if actually it is plotting and showing me how the sales has been. Uh, how the sales has been trending over the last few months. So that's what this page shelf does. So when you drag you can only drag a date over here. One of the date fields, and then you can ask it to play from the start of this, in whatever data you have, from whichever month you have till whatever time you want to play it, so that it will just draw this in front of us and will show how the sales have been moving. So that's about this page here.
I think there's a gap in there because there is no marks. That's
Yeah,
why.
right,
That's
right.
pretty nice. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, if we have exact data, which has got each for each month or week, or you can go down to any level, so based on that, it will actually plot that, So I think here, even then the new one that we were trying, if you go down to the go here line, and then you go to the week. Yeah, this is when you will actually see the trends. So I can now go and see stream, remove the fade and things like that. So there's lots of different options that it will give you, using which, and if we have data for each week or each day, then it will you will not see the gaps, so that it will actually just go and keep drawing it next to each other here. So that's the feature which Tableau gives in page. And so this is really nice when you probably are trying to give a presentation to the business or the higher management, and then during the presentation you show the report and then click on that animation, so that it just shows the trend, how the sales has been over the last 3 years, so it almost looks like it's really happening kind of a feeling.
Mm. Yeah.
So I think this is probably I'll stop it at this, because these hierarchies and all are like a new topic, so you probably have to spend more time on that
Okay.
when we start. So